from Ralph Waldo Emerson, Unitarian minister who wrote this in 1842. Cast away all conformity. Dare to love God without mediator or veil. You yourself are a newborn bard, a poet of the holy. Emerson encouraged a newly graduating class at Harvard Divinity School to speak the truth of their own life without a mediator or a veil, to speak the truth of their own experience, whatever is sacred to them firsthand, without anything between them and whatever that is. People don't need a minister to mediate or dogma to dictate their experience of the holy in this world. This morning, we've invited two members of the congregation to share with us the poetry of their own spirit. It's an invitation to share with us a glimpse, not of opinions or ideas per se, but of wisdom and of doubt mingled in with some faith. The questions circling the answers, convictions hard won, and wonder still emerging. This, I believe, is a hard assignment. We ask of these speakers that they speak of the truth as bravely as they can, that they tell us a story, that they model for us their essential spiritual work, making a narrative out of their experience, making meaning out of their life, even as it is still unfolding, and to share it with us. This, I believe, offers a fairly wide array of questions from their spiritual journey to spiritual practices to what sources they turn to for wisdom, or a story from their own life that reflects on how spirituality plays a role in their everyday life. Don't worry, I didn't ask them to answer all of those questions in 800 words or less. But each of them was a possibility, a prompting question to help them guide what they might want to share with us this morning, to lead toward what is most central in their heart. And beyond the specific beliefs or practices that they share, the larger invitation in them sharing this testimony with us is that this work of asking big questions, of creating meaning and living a life where the soul can find balance and find a sense of home, that work belongs to us all, each of us. And sometimes to remind us of that, we need to open our hearts to the testimony of others who have agreed to face the questions head on and share even a little bit about them. I'm grateful this morning for the testimony of Ethan Thompson-Jewell and Leslie Redinger, first for saying yes when I asked persistently, and mostly for the courage to share with us some testimony, some poetry of their own soul. I'm excited to hear them this morning.
Let me not be so vain to think that I'm the sole author of my victories and a victim of my defeats. Let me think about the people I care about most. And how about when they fail or disappoint me, I still love them. I still give them chances. And I still see the best in them. Then let me extend that generosity to myself. These are the words of Zay Frank. On our journey through life, we will have victories. But more importantly, we will have setbacks. It's how we learn from these setbacks, how we learn from our failures, that make us who we are. By allowing others another chance, I feel free to give myself another chance. A chance to grow, a chance to change my path, a chance to just be human, flaws and all. I often stop and take a minute. I take a break from the busyness of the outside world to reflect, to think about a younger time in my life, a time when I was more naive and not as experienced as I am now. I think about what I've done that's caused me to feel regret. I think about how I wish I could go back, tell myself not to be so naive. But I don't let these regrets become a burden. The regrets I feel reassure me. They reassure me that I've grown, and that I won't make the same mistake twice. I give myself a second chance. We all deserve a second chance. I forgive myself for acting naive because the past is in the past. There's nothing that I can do to change it. The only thing I can do is forgive and move on. My ability to forgive myself has shaped who I am as a person as I travel through this ever-changing journey called life. I am 16 years old, and my journey has just begun. That idea terrifies me. I often ask myself, am I on the right path? Am I doing enough? What opportunities am I passing up? In 10, 20, 30 years, what will I regret not doing? These questions worry me. I mean, really, how do you grown-ups do it? Whenever I worry about these questions, I repeat this mantra to myself. Worry cannot take away your pain or your sorrow. It will only take away your peace today. My family is very important to me. To paraphrase Bill Withers, we lean on each other when we are not strong, and we help each other carry on. My family is very close. About 50 of us live within 7 miles of each other. We are our own village. The community that my family shares is something that I cherish. My humanist beliefs stem from growing up in a family that treats each other's, as well as others, with compassion and respect. I believe that it's important to treat people with dignity, regardless to whether or not I agree with them. I've heard my whole life that we do not know a person's story. Therefore, we cannot know the struggles that they face. It is not our place to judge, but to show a little bit of kindness in their day. I try to look for the silver lining and find the positive, no matter what the situation is. This is easy to do when you're not feeling judged by others. I hope that the kindness that I put out into the world is reciprocated by others, because it would make the world a better place. I find joy in making others feel good. It makes me happy to see others happy. One question I often wonder about is, when does kindness leave our everyday lives? As kids, we're taught to be nice. I wonder how we expect kids to be nice as adults when their role models are not always civil to each other. It seems like adults are in it for themselves. Some days we could all take a lesson from our childhood and remember that a little bit of kindness goes a long way. Dr. Seuss's book, The Horton Hears a Who, is a good example of this. The book's overall lesson is very simple. A person is a person, no matter how small. A person is a person, no matter what. It amazes me how this simple of a lesson can be lost to so many people. A person's a person, no matter what. There's no reason to treat someone differently. They still deserve your kindness, just as you do theirs, because a person is still a person. I often wonder what the world would be like if we put as much energy into science and technology as we do spreading hate. Can a little bit of kindness really help? I like to think so. I see kindness work in my everyday life. The kindness that I receive from family and friends and mentors reassures me. It gives me hope. Hope that someday the world will be at peace. I would like to leave you today with these words by John Lennon. People may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join me so the world can live as one.
Good morning. At a recent family reunion, a younger cousin and I noticed that we had family members from most faith traditions. I was Unitarian. One of my uncles went to an Episcopal church. My dad is agnostic and only goes to church to please my mother. My sister is a hands-down atheist. And one whole family is Catholic, and another whole family is evangelical Christian. I was quite pleased by all the religious diversity. I learned about Unitarian Universalism when I lived in Southern California. To get to the closest Unitarian church, I had to drive 30 minutes down the freeway, but it was well worth the drive. The church was built as a geodesic dome in a small woody plot that smelled of eucalyptus. The church interior was minimalistic, which is an aesthetic I appreciate from my hero, Frank Lloyd Wright, who is also Unitarian and also from the Midwest in Wisconsin. The thing I noticed about that church is they had floor-to-ceiling windows. You could look out into the woods. So imagine my surprise when I came here. Anyway, so this is my first introduction to Unitarianism, and the sermon topics were all over the board, and each one of them always challenged my thinking. I didn't get to go there very often, but the Unitarian seed was planted. When I moved to Rochester, this church was the first place I went besides going to work. I became a member in 2002, and since then I've tried to engage in the life of the church. I did Bible study with Reverend Dillman Baker Sorrells, and some of that was my first introduction to those stories. I was a worship associate with Reverend Carol Hapikowski, where I had to overcome my natural shyness to be able to talk in front of you all. I chaired the history committee for a number of years, and that work of the group helped us have resources available for the 150th celebration, and it's now being ably led by our friend Sue Wheeler. I've been in and out of the Artist Way groups and Creative Spirits, and I've gone to a couple of women's retreats, so shout out to Melissa Egler for this year's great success. And my last endeavor was leading the Articulating Your UU Faith with Maggie Nolte. So you'd think this would be easy for me to do, but it never is. So from my days as a worship associate, I just happen to have a hymnal at home. And in the back, I write all the stuff that I've done. And I've already written in, doing this, I believe, for today. You might see that I have everything marked, the resources and readings, the principles and sources. And one of the hymns I have is For the Beauty of the Earth. I wanted to include that song in this service because two reasons. It expresses my overall worldview, and it ties music as one of my spiritual practices. So getting back to some of that, what that hymn says, that whole sense of wonder really inspires my life. And I've been lucky enough to live in a lot of open spaces in the Midwest, Illinois, Ohio, and now Minnesota. In California, I got to see the ocean on my left and the snow in the mountains as I drove to work. I loved the beauty and stillness of the desert. When I travel, I unconsciously go to places with ancient human civilizations or vast, vast land masses. So I've been to the openness of Kenya and Egypt and China. As I wander where the ancient peoples walked, I imagine what their lives were like and what we need to learn from them. A couple years ago, I joined here's the geek in me, Rochester Astronomy Club. And I found the planetarium at Mayo High School. So My heart shivers every time I get to go to a new session there and learn about the universe. Dark energy and dark matter are now the new mysteries to be revealed to us. And I use that word purposely, revealed, not in the divine sense or divine revelation sense, but in the focused discovery of scientists and researchers to understand the unknown. So I think it's fabulous when they find out new things about how our universe works. So I've always enjoyed learning about the basics of the world's religions. I've lived in major cities where most people were Catholic or Jewish with sprinkles of Buddhist and nuns. So that would be N-O-N-E-S. I've had friends from many faith traditions, and through the years I found myself at Catholic Mass or Jewish or Passover Seders or even Vietnamese wedding celebrations. Moving to Minnesota was my first exposure to the Lutheran Church. So that's another faith tradition I get to explore. So I'm outing myself here. Some of you might know that I played cello in the Mayo Chamber Symphony, and that's the amateur group in town compared to the Rochester Symphony. I would say that listening and playing classical music is my major spiritual practice. I learned rather quickly that music is played in churches in Rochester, so I had to get a little bit adjusted to that. And the Mayo Symphony has played in Lutheran, Episcopal, and Presbyterian churches, and our Christmas concert is held at St. Mary's Chapel downtown, and it gets broadcast to all the patient rooms. So that's how we give back to the community. I have a cellist friend who is nudging me to play in smaller musical ensembles. One of these pieces we practice as a cello duet is For the Beauty of the Earth. We play it to warm up our hands and our instruments, and so I think of it as a musical meditation. When we perform this song at hospice patients or in senior groups, most of them recognize the tune because I think it's like in everybody's hymnal, and we make that connection with everybody. So my dad still asks me, what do Unitarians believe? I tell him it's not about the creed or the dogma or the doctrine, but about the quality of your relationships and how you treat people and how you live your life. I believe my spiritual journey is about how I make a difference in the world. So to me, all faith traditions are in a continuous line from atheist and non-theist all the way up to fundamentalists of all religious stripes. But I'm content meandering somewhere in the middle, and I like the idea of being able to explore and travel that unknown path to learn new things. Most of all, I'm happy that I belong here and that I have found this congregation as my tribe. So thank you. And now, please join me.